everybody. Welcome back to another edition of PD and PDubs Unscripted here on Monday, March 28th. PDubs, how's it going?
It's going great for a Monday, PD. Great to be with you and all those who are listening in to our podcast. Thank you so much for checking us out. And you know what? Thank you for sharing it with your friends. We know that our experiences are growing, so thank you for that. And we just appreciate you listening to us.
Yeah, we're greatly appreciative of all those listeners and all the conversations that we have here and that you get to join in on them. Hopefully they're helping you grow in faith, maybe having a little bit better understand what's in Scripture, seeing how we're involved in the community or people that we know are involved in the community, and just that everyday walk of faith and how it intersects with our life.
Yeah, so it's been a whole lot of fun in this walk of starting up the podcast and coming up with different topics. And today we have another cool topic. Pastor, you kind of stumbled upon this one, and hopefully it'll be a good conversation today.
Yeah, so I was trying to think of where we see faith intersecting in our lives, and I was thinking maybe March Madness and all these different things of what we see, and then I was trying to maybe look at headlines on Apple News to see if there's anything going on in the world, and I was like, what about Relevant Magazine? I remember seeing about this, I think on Vicarage or sometime around there, and I was like, what do they talk about? Because like on their website, it has faith, life, culture, current, justice. So I was like, oh, there's a lot of different areas that they could hit on. Mm-hmm. And then I saw this article about Bob Goff, who I recognize the name. I don't know if I've ever read any of his books. Like I know I've seen people read his books, like Love Does, yeah. Everybody Always, Live in Grace, Walk in Love, then Dream Big. And then this year he released a book called Undistracted. And I think that's what got me in because I saw the title of this article on Relevant Magazine called The Power of an Undistracted Life. And I started to think, man, I bet a lot of people have a distracted life.
Oh, yeah, probably all of us. I mean, it's a great topic. And that's, as I read the article too, I was very intrigued and felt myself fully identifying with the things that he was saying. And so, yeah, I think we all, especially in this day and age, deal with distractions all over the place. We've talked about it on a lot of our sermons, right. With regard to how Satan uses distractions to take us away from God.
Right, takes away from what really matters in this life, where we get caught up in the small details of something. Mm-hmm. And, we're like, one of the things I think now is rising for a distraction for many people is going down that rabbit hole when you're on the internet. Like if you're on like looking up something on maybe Wikipedia or something, and as you read that, it's like, oh, well now I'm going to go down this rabbit hole.
Yep.
And then like hour later, like, how did I even get here?
I know. I was thinking soon you find yourself an hour later going, how did an hour go by? And so that, yeah, we all have been there.
Like for me, sometimes like one more recent ones probably as I was looking up about the TV show Inventing Anna on Netflix. Mm-hmm. And I was just kind of curious, how accurate is that? And like, what really was her background? Because they go a little bit into that show. And for those that don't know, it's about this person that faked being this German heiress and racked up a huge amount of debt in different places. And I was like, what was her background? And like, what's her, status before I finish? And then it's like, okay, well, oh, now she's in this jail or prison. It's like, well, I want to look at there. Oh, who's in this prison? And it's like, what did they do? And it's like, I don't know. It's kind of interesting when you look and see like, oh, that person's in that prison. And who else is in that one with them?
Right. And so that's going down the rabbit hole of distraction. And then there's another animal of distraction, and his name is Squirrel. So it's like, you're trying to concentrate on something, and all of a sudden you see something, and you're like, oh, what's that? And then you're like, oh, that's really interesting. I got to get back to where I was before. Oh, what's that? And so like you find yourself completely distracted by the squirrel.
And then you don't know how to get out because you've gone so many different trails. And like, I know what happens to me sometimes as I'm reading something, I'm like, oh yeah, I want to go look up that, but I want to finish reading this. And I finished reading, and I was like, what was I going to look up? And then I spend like time trying to think, what was that I was trying to look up? Then I go back, scroll, I'm like, what was I? I'm like trying to see, can I trigger it again? But so we have all these distractions, and that was one of the things that Bob Goff said in this interview. He's like, I've spent all my life being distracted. He says, his eyes sparkling from beneath the brim of his ball cap. I just said, I'm done with being distracted. I want to know, like, I'm almost like, man, maybe I should go get this book because I want to know how to stop being distracted.
I hear you, man. I just feel like it is a constant bombarding of, really trying hard to stay focused every day, and so he's done with being distracted. So what does he say? Well, he goes on to say we live distracted. I mean, that is the fabric of who we are, it seems like. And he says that is just Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. But I think you could be enthusiastic about what's going on around you and at the same time understand what's going on inside of you. So there is where he really branches off. Like the things that distract are what's going on outside of us. And, we need to focus on what's going on inside of us, what's going on inside of us. So,
Right, and we don't want to be like when you were reading that. I was thinking about Garfield and his like Mondays.
yeah.
We don't want that to be our everyday mentality. Like, it's another Tuesday, another, and so we just almost get distracted. And so he's talking about how he talks about where social media is a huge distraction for people, like, and it eats away our time. And it's one of those interesting things. Like, I'd hate to think about how many times I scroll through Twitter or Facebook. And it's just, there's no reason. I'm just kind of killing time, whether I'm in a line at a store or at home, just like, feel like, what's going on here?
I know. It's sometimes like, you go through a work day and you're like, oh, finally home. I can kind of relax a little bit. And so, what are your ways that you relax? Sometimes I'll turn on the TV, just some mindless watching of TV. So I'm not really using my brain much and just relaxing. But then invariably you'll pick up the phone and you'll like look through social media. And then the next thing you know, like you had said before, time has gone by and you're like, wow, I feel like, I don't know, did I benefit from that? Like I'm trying to relax. So I guess I did get that. But then my mind is off on other rabbit trails.
Right.
So I don't know that it's really productive.
And is it really beneficial for us? Because later on in this article, he says, everybody's in everybody's grill about stuff that you could be distracted by coming up with a worldview to protect you from it. You think this is not a safe place. I don't want to feel rejection. So what I'd rather do is fake it. Then we become caricatures. And, that's where I think, especially with social media, we do it as a distraction, but then it also then can increase that blood pressure and that anger level because we see what people are posting about. And I know I have the bad habit sometimes of being like, I just want to go on like the Daily Herald's website or their Facebook and see like whatever article. I'm like, I just want to see the comments and see the people fighting and arguing. And it's like, why am I doing this?
I know.
Because it gets me a little like, oh man, how dumb are these people or how silly are their arguments?
Yes, I do it too. I mean, I do it for fun things. Like I was just watching another Shaquille O'Neal and Charles Barkley on Inside NBA.
You love Shaquille O'Neal and Charles Barkley.
Oh, they are cracking me up. So, like for those listening, I showed Pastor a video yesterday, and we were getting some good laughs. And then like another video came up this morning, and then I had to like open up the comments to see what people were saying, and they're like also enjoying those two as a pair. And but yeah, so like you can get opening up comments, and then it gets your mind going, and in this case it kept the laughter going, which was a positive thing. But then there are more times than not where it gets people saying things that are very negative, and it gets you spun up,
Right. And I don't know why I do it because I know it's just going to get me spun up, but it's like I'm just here for the arguments. Give me some popcorn and watch people fight and bicker that I don't even know who they are.
I don't even know them. I have no idea. Why am I doing this?
Yeah, I don't get it. And so, but and then as he says, you think this is not a safe place. And I started thinking about in our own identity and who we are and like distractions. Do we feel comfortable putting out who we really are on social media? Because, will somebody disagree with us, or will they take pot shots at us, or will they disagree? And then we're afraid to like maybe voice our opinion, especially when it comes to faith.
It's funny you brought that up because I remember one time talking to one of my sons, and he was talking about the difference between his Facebook account and his Twitter account, and maybe he also included Instagram. But he goes, I use each platform for a different side of me. It's like I choose on what platform to reveal about me. And he's like, the Twitter side is really not really revealing about me. I just kind of put a persona out there of the things that I post. And I'm like, holy cow, I never thought of that. Like, if I post something on any of the platforms, I'm like, this is what I like. This is me. I never even gave a thought to it. But I think some people do that kind of thing.
Right. And you think about that as what you're talking about. This whole idea then of like, how much does that wear and tear on you that you're like, I got to keep up all these different selves. And it can be exhausting because it's like, well, who am I in these different things? You don't have that like connection to who you are.
Right. So, like, for instance, if he wanted to be a little snarky, maybe he uses Twitter for being snarky. And, like, he knows that he's got a different following over there versus maybe he's more of himself on showing pictures on Instagram and whatever. But it gets down to, like, who are we trying to portray as who we really are, out in people getting to know us. Either, we cast this image of us out on social media, but yet we don't reveal the personal inside side of us.
Right. And I mean, I see that, and I was just trying to look up some statistics from when I've done some social media awareness with parents and teenagers. And one of the things that I think is interesting, and just keep in mind this data is older now, especially because it's referencing Facebook and children, and we know that youth aren't on Facebook. That's for old people like Pastor and myself. But it said at this point, 43% of children say their Facebook profile is equally important to what they wear on the first day of school.
Wow.
And so, you think about that when you were in grade school or myself, it's like, okay, I got to make sure I look good on the first day of school because it's the first day, make that good impression. But now it happens on social media.
Well, you just hit on something that lit up my mind. It was like, when you're in high school, there's different groups of kids who dress a particular way. Right. And if you dress a particular way, you're going to be associated with a very particular group. So why is that any different than what we're talking about with personas out on social media platforms?
Right.
It's really the same.
It is. And so now you have all these different things with not just Facebook, it's Twitter, it's Instagram, it's Snapchat. And to me, I think those are the two biggest with our younger generations like millennials and Gen Z is Snapchat and Instagram. And so and the thing about social media, and I think this gets to what you were saying about your son, is you can almost present whatever self you want and the best possible life that you have on social media. Like, if I go to a Sox game or something and they win, I might post a picture of the scoreboard and be like, what a game. But if they get smoked, that picture ain't going to go up on social media. So we can, or if, for those that like to put their food on Facebook.
I was just going to say.
Like, let's say I burn a steak or a burger that I put on the grill. I'm not going to post that one picture if I would do that on social media.
Or I'm at this restaurant and this is what I've ordered. Oh, I'm at this restaurant and this is what I've ordered. So the snarky side of me one time, I don't know why those bother me.
Wait, you're snarky?
No, not at all. So I was sitting in my backyard at my patio after having just grilled something on the barbecue, and I took a picture of my food, my dinner, and I said, enjoying a wonderful burger at Yellowstone Cafe, which is the street I live on.
Right.
Like, I wonder if anybody will pick up on the fact that I'm in my house.
Right.
So, whatever.
But you can present that best life possible.
Oh, you can.
Or even for those that take selfies. If you don't like how it turns out, you can take another one to your heart's content. And so you get that right perfect one with the perfect lighting, the perfect smile, whatever.
Well, you bring up Inventing Anna. That was all about her creating her whole persona, right? And like people starting to believe who she was and or who she portrayed herself to be.
And she was fully committed to that identity of this German heiress. And when it be up to question, she's like, "What are you talking about?"
Yeah.
Oh, don't worry, I got this. And I think that's what was so interesting about that show was just like that mindset and how she believed. I mean, and then that and the whole idea of like, how do you feel good about like duping all these people?
Yeah. So we're talking about identity, and here's in the article. Bob says, he says the pressure of living our lives in public as the social media age requires of us can lead us to being distracted at an internal level. We're more concerned with cultivating an acceptable identity than we are with focusing on who we were created to be. And then he says, we can have these two personas going on. There's the person that your loved ones know, and then there's the person that strangers know. What I want to do is sync those up, understand what's going on and why, and what's that connected to. And that really hits it on the head, I think.
Right.
There's everything we're just talking about.
This identity, who you are, and even the different personas, as he's talking about, who your loved ones are and how they know you. And I started to think about, as you were reading that, like the names that we have.
Yeah.
Like here at Emmanuel, most people call me Pastor Donald, PD. I get all those. But it's not like when I'm with my family, they're like, Pastor Donald.
Yeah.
I'll get Donald or Don or maybe a nickname.
Nicknames. Yeah.
Or like people have known me for a really, really long time or close friends like you experienced when we're at Best Practices with Phoenix.
Yep.
My good friend Buzz, I usually get Donnie from him.
Yeah.
And you probably never really heard anybody ever refer to me as Donnie.
No, nor would I ever think to call you that.
Right. So it's either I've known you for a really long time or we're really close friends.
Yeah.
But that was the first thing I got from Buzz was like Donnie or Donnie boy, because that's usually what I get a lot from him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's absolutely true. And, the persona of who your loved ones know you to be versus strangers. I'll never forget, it was at my best friend's wedding, and I had to do the toast. And my parents were invited to the wedding, and they were there. And I was, like, having a good time, and my best friend and his bride wanted me to do a Harry Carey impersonation for the toast. And I'm like, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. And so Carol, the bride's like, please, 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 please. So, all right, I'll do it. So I do this Harry Carey impersonation. The whole place goes up in a roar, all laughing because of what I'm saying is Harry. I became Harry, right? And then, like, at the end, my parents, somewhere in the evening, they're like, we never knew you were that funny. I'm like, you seem to be comfortable in front of people. I'm like, how come you don't show that at home? I'm like, I don't know. It's just who I am with my friends.
But that gets to that whole like kind of name thing. Like to them, you're their son, the quiet one, and then your friends know you differently. And that's kind of like the names. Like, people know different levels of you based on how they know you or where they know you from.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, and then, so Bob goes on and talks about embracing the understanding. Our digital lives invite intense scrutiny, so we spend enormous amounts of energy retreating into sanitized public identities that might not be completely real. But at least they're safe, he says. And he says a big key to living an undistracted life is being willing to live out a less safe life. Less safe life.
Less safe.
What do you think of that?
Yeah, because like you are concerned, like especially nowadays, how you are perceived on social media. I'm just trying to look up some stats here, like with all that. And I don't know if I necessarily have stats, but like I found here talking about college admissions on a PowerPoint I did about social media awareness. Some of my staff members will, prior to an admissions interview, look at Facebook just to get a sense of who the student is, this person says. As far as using it to check up on our applicants, though, we would rarely do that. And another side, I think anything that is in the public domain is fair game for admission counselors to look at. This person says admission officers are the part of the public, and if they choose to research social media, I don't consider that an invasion of privacy. So that's always one of those interesting things. You don't think about what you post on there, and especially, this talking about college admissions. And, now that kids are getting social media at younger ages, it creates more of an issue because, as I've talked about maybe in sermons or Bible studies, how like the last part of our brain that develops is the common sense part of our brain, which doesn't happen until you're about 25.
Okay.
And so think about that, like that's the last part of our brain that develops. And now you have social media at younger ages because
they're looking back in the years where your common sense is not fully developed to determine if you can have a career with them.
Right. And it's one of those things like, because I know I've had this, but you can go back on my Facebook all the way back to 2005. So that puts me 21, 20-ish and through there. So it's like, thankfully I was a little more mature, and that's about when Facebook started, because I know I was in college when it started.
Right.
So I was at least 18, 19 or whatever when it started. And so, yeah, probably back then there were some posts that probably have been deleted.
Mm-hmm.
But think about now where kids are getting it at 12 or 13, and they don't think about, oh, what's going to happen when I go to college or future career choices.
Right, right.
And what I post on there. So you do have the sanitized version, so to speak, of your life.
Mm-hmm.
Or you have where, I think this, you kind of were getting at it a little bit earlier with your son, but now you have like people will make maybe a fake account that they only let their friends see that are private, so they can post other things that they don't want the rest of the world to see. And that's
Right.
always to me, an interesting, like, if you don't feel comfortable having other people see it,
Then why even put it out there?
why even put it out there?
Yeah, and the same is true for our faith. If you really think about it, I mean, we've talked in the past when we're here at church. You and I, we are known as pastors. That's who we are, and so our persona, as people come in on the weekends to worship, they have expectation of who we are, how we will act, what we will say, the content and nature of things that we say. And so there's the expectation. But, if we are found out in the community and we have like a less formal kind of persona on, sometimes that throws people off, but yet, as we've talked about, we really try our best to be kind of the same throughout. Like our identity is like what we try and teach people is your identity is in Jesus. So go with that, be strong in that, and you can still be who God created you to be, like a goofy person who does impersonations. Or
I don't know who that would describe.
Yeah, that's you all over the place.
Oh yeah, I'm a great, and I can do great impressions.
Yeah.
But it's that interesting because it is funny when like people do see us out and about. Like I know I have some of the kids like, I didn't recognize you at first because you had a baseball hat on. Mm-hmm. I'm like, well, 99% of the time, if I'm not working, there's a baseball hat on most likely.
Right. Oh, it was just at our 50s Plus a couple Fridays ago. I had a plaid button-down shirt with jeans on, and one of the ladies says, "Oh, I'm not used to seeing you so casual, Pastor. You don't look like you're in your pastor clothes." I'm like,
pastor clothes.
I'm like, okay, I don't know what my pastor clothes are, but okay. I'm just relaxing today. Right. It's a Friday.
Right, and I mean, we kind of had that conversation this morning in the office with some of our office staff, where we're like, because I came out first and I was in before you, and they're like, why are you so dressed up? And I was like, because since it's spring break, I can wear jeans, but we have worship tonight because it's Wednesday when we're recording, and I don't feel like changing out of it. So, and then you popped out of your office, and
right, almost.
They're like, they're calling us the Bopsy twins over here. But it's like, yeah, I mean, yeah, most likely, as you said, and I agree, like, I'd rather be in jeans or shorts and a t-shirt or a hoodie, baseball hat. And so, but it creates kind of where I almost think it leads a little bit into one of the quotes here from Bob Goff, where he's like, part of living a less distracted life is to come to grips with the fact that you're always being misunderstood. Mm-hmm. You're going to be misunderstood.
Yes. Yeah, so, like, I don't know if you feel like this sometimes in your pastor role, as not just Sunday at church, but just when you interface with people around the church, they have their perceptions cast upon you. And when you don't, it's almost like they have an expectation of how you're going to act or maybe align yourself with them and their point. And if you don't, you feel misunderstood. Like, right. I don't know if I'm speaking clearly enough, but I can kind of identify with this. Like,
they put expectations almost.
Yeah, and if you don't align with it, you're misunderstood.
Right, and it's like, like we're kind of talking about like clothes that we might wear, like kind of what you're talking about, where somebody's like, you're not wearing your pastor clothes.
Yeah.
Do that expectation like, oh, wherever you go, you're going to be in dress pants or khakis and a button-down shirt.
Yeah, and I think Goff is saying, like, if you're living in this way, that you embrace being misunderstood and you don't let it bother you. So, like, if I'd have got, like, all upset, like, oh, man, these people don't identify me as their pastor because I'm wearing a plaid button-down shirt and jeans and gym shoes, I'm running back home and changing into my pastor clothes.
We don't have a spare set just lying around in the office.
I should. Wait a minute. I'll be right back.
Clark Kent going into the telephone booth.
Yeah. So, like, if I was that worried about my persona, that might throw my thinking off the rest of the day. Like, oh, man, what a mistake. What am I doing?
What you should have done is gone into the sanctuary, put on your robe and stole. Then
Yes.
you would have been good.
I would have been good then. Yeah. And they would have really loved that. But here he says it's all about that embracing. He says there's a difference between accepting the fact that you'll be misunderstood and deliberately seeking it out. He says, I'm not aiming for misunderstanding. I'm aiming for the opposite. I'm looking for clarity, but I'm not going to sacrifice who I am for clarity to a stranger. So I think that goes back to our Facebook things, like the people that we don't even know who are commenting on things. Like, are we looking for clarity on people we'll never meet or we don't even know anything about? They don't know us.
Right, that background of like maybe they have so strong of opinion on whatever they're speaking on because of something in their past.
Yeah.
And we don't know those things. And I think that kind of, which I missed this quote earlier, where it says, Goff believes we can be more concerned about avoiding accusation from strangers than we are living fully in the moment. And that's, I think, is such a big thing too with this, like, that being misunderstood and living in the moment where we don't live in the moment. A lot of people, like, you go to any concert now, and what do you see? You see people just with their cell phones up, taking pictures, taking videos. It's like, are you really in the moment of this concert or that experience or sporting event? Like, I think back to concert I went back to, I think it was 2019, right before COVID at the United Center, and the band was a little bit different, and they were like, listen, and I knew this about them, they're like, no cameras, no phones out during the show. If you do, you will be ejected from the concert.
Okay.
They had signs all up around the United Center that, like, if you have your phone out or you take a picture, you'll be kicked out of here, which is crazy to think about. But their whole idea is like, we want you to be in this moment, to enjoy being here, because they do a lot with the visuals and all this aesthetics of things. And then finally, after the last song, the singer's like, fine, you guys have been good enough. You can finally do what you want. To take out your phones and take pictures or videos, whatever you want during this last song.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's like that being there in the moment, and kind of I think being there in the moment is understanding, maybe trying to get that understanding, that clarity of what that person's going through or why they feel that way.
Yeah, being in the moment in a conversation with someone, whether it's family, friend, someone in the community, being in the moment at a concert, like you say, or even like in worship, being in the moment, like, because God's there in the moment with you. So why be distracted away from Him? It could be the greatest moments of your week, and for what He gives you, and that's why Satan's always at play, even inside of worship. He's trying to distract us all through that.
Right, and I mean, obviously we know there's plenty of distractions during a worship service. You could be thinking about, what am I going to eat today? Do I need to change my fantasy football roster because somebody just got hurt?
Yeah, exactly.
And like, oh, I messed up, or like, oh, I spilled I spilled coffee on my outfit, or all these things of distracted, or what do I have going on this week?
Yeah.
But being there in the moment, being fed and nourished by God's word and sacrament is such an important thing.
I'll never forget, one of my favorite moments was the text was about this kind of thing, distraction and Satan tempting, and in the pulpit, I was like acting like my friend was texting me and wanting me to take a selfie of me in the pulpit, and so I pretended to take a picture of me, and then I said, "Oh, now he wants me to turn around and take a picture of me with you behind me." I don't know if you were here when I did that one.
Doesn't ring a bell.
So I did all these things to kind of punctuate of being distracted in worship. And so then I went on and talked about all of that in the sermon. And as I was leaving, or as I was greeting people out, one older lady came up to me and she goes, "Pastor, you should really just put your cell phone away when you're preaching so you're not so distracted in the pulpit." And she was absolutely serious. And I thought, wow, I thought I made it look like this was kind of a joke.
Right.
But I guess I was too good at it. But
I think it's that misunderstanding of maybe like the different culture and generations.
Absolutely.
Because I know, like, I remember somebody once hearing somebody say, hey, it wasn't from the persons themselves, but they're like, they thought, when I went up to do a children's message or something, having my iPad out there, my phone, looking at my phone, well, that's not a good look. And they didn't realize that's where I had my notes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it's
I
just
do remember that. Yeah.
And it's one of those things now that seems to be the more commonplace. And I know that's why initially when we started to use the iPads coming back from COVID, we made that announcement, hey, you might see us on our iPads during service, but here's the reason why. This is where we have our script. We might be trying to engage with those worshiping online so that we don't have that misunderstanding, but that clarity for people in that moment so they understand we're fully engaged.
Yeah, and this whole topic is really great because even in our devotional life or just reading scripture, anytime we're trying to strengthen our inner self, Satan's always at work trying to distract us. I don't know how many times I've read a devotion and gotten through a couple paragraphs, and I've got 5 things on my mind, and I've gone, I got to go read it back again. And then I get through like 2 sentences, and my mind's already squirreling. Squirrel.
Or even like, I don't know if this happens to you, but it happens to me. Like I'm praying, and then like I say something, then I start talking about something else, and I'm going to go down the. I'm like, God, I'm sorry. I don't know why I went down that path. It wasn't even planned.
I know. The Lord must just like do a facepalm sometimes to his head and just shake his head like, all right, there they go again. Thank the Lord he loves us so much.
Right. And so, that's a good spot to stop, that the Lord loves us despite all those times we have those squirrel moments and that importance of just like being in the moment and not being distracted with all the things that can distract us, but being there, enjoying the people you're around, the experiences that you're in, especially when it comes to worship or devotional time, and just maybe putting yourself in the shoes of others so that maybe you can have an understanding and not a misunderstanding, and maybe try not to go down so many rabbit holes when you're on the internet.
Yeah, for sure. And just know that God's with you even in those distractions. And he's the one, he'll use his Holy Spirit to kind of regain your focus. And so just know that you're not alone. And as you get bombarded by distractions, you can win over those distractions. God will help you, and he'll draw you back to where you need to be. Well, thanks for joining us on this conversation about the power of being undistracted. And PD, it was great for you to bring this topic in, and thanks so much.
Not a problem. God's blessings.